describe it as like, for me, I felt like I was like in a dark space. I felt that I didn't have hope. I felt really, really low. Like I was at a place of where we call it, like where I called it as a rock bottom. And I felt that if I did not change some of the things that I was doing, if I did not seek help, then my life was probably on the line. Well, when I first went into treatment, I had extremely severe health issues. My feet were really, really swollen, and I was down to like 98 pounds. And I had a lot of, health issues. And with coming into treatment, the barriers was that I was being judged for not being an alcoholic, and they were asking, are you sure that you didn't use substance? Or are you sure you're not an addict? And those were some barriers that I had to overcome because my drug of choice was alcohol. Well, with the stigma, it was that just like, being judged, like, for an example, of filling out applications or, going certain places and identifying that I'm an alcoholic, that, you'd be looked at a certain way or you'd be judged, to a certain degree. So the stigma was out there, but I ended up getting into some services and different programs that helped me overcome those stigmas. Absolutely. So I started off with, taking some recovery support classes on Zoom, and, those trainers and those teachers, let me know that I wasn't alone, and that, if I needed support or help, that they would be there with the weekly check-ins, the online 3 days a week, and, just meet me where I was at. I went into treatment at Haymarket, and I actually found the Path Recovery Home like in a binder book, because I was seeking outside of the next step after treatment was a recovery home, and I found the Path, which was located in Forest Park. And once I made that transition, the doors opened for CRCC. I was then beginning the recovery home requirements was to get on 3 times a week recovery support services, which was called RSS. I did that for about almost a year, and then I made a transition to going to another program that CRCC offered, which was the Workforce Development Program.
Okay.
Which I attended. These people were more friendlier. They actually listened. They asked me, they were just more, it was more support. I felt that, if I needed someone to talk to, or then to the services and things were available. Well, as far as emotional and well-being, I felt like, before I got these services, I was somewhat unsure. I could tell you that I wasn't in a position that I am today. Emotionally, I was emotionally wrecked. The services that they offered made me feel openly free to express my feelings or express what I was feeling on the inside, versus not having them. When I had emotions, I used about it. Yes, the turning point, that influence, was after I completed the workforce development program, that, that they were paying more attention to me than I was like actually physically paying attention to myself. And, they were believing in me before I could believe in myself, and they offered me an interview, with their job, with their company. And it was like, wow, it was a feeling that I've never experienced before. Being able to help someone else, being able to give the support that was given to me, and just being able to make a difference in someone's life today. Help and support looks like, for me, is basically meeting people where they're at, and if they are looking for whatever services, is just being able to extend that hand to helping them find those resources or helping them to get to some of their goals or their destinations. See, I had people like family members saying, suggesting to come into recovery, but until I was willing and ready, it didn't ding dong in my head. Mm-hmm. To be honest, it was people out there with, well, maybe you should do this, or maybe you should do that. But I think for me, it was more so of me just hitting that bottom and just desperately needing the support. Well, it has changed, my whole dynamic of recovery, the purpose, the communication piece, the support. And I look at recovery different than what I looked at it a couple of 24 hours ago. I looked at recovery in a bad way. I didn't see what I see now, meaning that it is hope and that it is, some people like myself, we do make it, I do feel that what I put in is what I got out. I was determined, as the dying can be, to make changes in my life, and I did. Well, I could say that I have confidence today. I was a person that came into the rooms in the program of recovery with insecurities, self-esteem. I feel like that those are some of my strengths and my wins. I feel like that I'm passionate about giving back more so than I was, self-seeking. I was just all over the place. But today I'm more stable, and my focus is to give back what was freely given to me. Reach one, teach one. I always, if I'm doing a group or if I'm out in the recovery field, I know that if I could touch one person out of 10, then I did something. But I'm just letting people know that it is, a way out, that it is hope, to take one day at a time. You don't have to, that some days you might fall short, but not to give up, to have faith and hope. So coming into recovery, my family kind of turned their back on me, and I had to do the work. Now today my family see I, don't have to say nothing. They see my actions, and my relationship with my children are like bread and butter. We are good. My family, I talk to my mom more. She's in recovery, and my relationships are wonderful today. And it's because of this program. Seeing me help my mom, more so I think that I didn't really take her recovery serious when she was in recovery. I was like, why you gotta go to those meetings and why you gotta do this? But I see that this is a program that you can't do alone, and I understand now where she was coming from. No, this is an ongoing process. It's not a finish line. It's not none of that. This is an ongoing process. It's a daily reprieve. And, you just have to take it one day at a time. And when challenges come up, just not to give up. And just, use those skills that we learned, that I've learned in this program, of coping skills, all of these different things. Calling up somebody, picking up the phone. We talk about everything. We use about nothing. Just staying connected. Just that connection piece. Well, number one is to not give up. Give yourself a chance. Give chance a chance. And, it's all different types of programs out here, and it's just about not being afraid to speak up of what you need. Just continuing to take one day at a time. Continue to network. I think the networking piece, the communication piece, and just For me, it's just getting out more. I have a home group, and it's just staying connected with other people that's in the recovery field.